Hello everyone, and welcome back to a log or so so I was so hello everybody. It's Sunday night at about 10:30. So it's Sunday night at 10:34. So everybody, so it's actually funny. So Friday night while I was playing this. So I was this is going to be gameplay related. So I'm doing well, everybody. Here's Sunday, August 28th, 2022. So I was dueling Road Metal Mage, and so I got Baby Dragon, Time Wizard, Wicked Dragon, Skullred Bird, Mars Radiant, Mega Thunderball. So this is my own business. I dueled Metal Mage. Till I got to that. So I dueled Metal Mage. First try after I got back into the game, and I got him. The Meteor B dot dragon, or K6 Coupe would say, was the Meteor effing B fucking dot beeping dragon. So that's the strongest card I can get in the game, and I have won it legit. No cheats. So I've been playing this game for about a couple days now. I actually restarted playing it on. I started to replay it on last week, and 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then I had to get the phone back up and running. This is actually my old Motorola G Stylus piece of this unhinged piece of garbage that I never ever thought I would use ever in about a million years. But yeah, I've been doing that. So I didn't give you guys gear change show last night, so I'm sorry. I didn't really want to give a gear change show. Gear change show is usually what happened last night. Is I went to bed at around 7:30. I went to take a nap, and I wanted to get up an hour later because I wanted to watch the NASCAR race, and then I learned it was postponed. Then I went back to bed. So I actually want to do it tonight, and I've been trying to pick a topic, and I thought I'd tell the tale of this car. So I got this this was actually from my uncle, John. He had it in his collection, and he didn't know if it was significant or not. And I said, yes, it is. It's this is the Scuderia Filippinetti car, Coupe Daytona, that ran in 1965. Coupe Daytona. For those of you who do not know how this came to be, For those of you who see this little silhouette, you guys will notice that it has similarities to another car, the Shelby Cobra. Now this is the Shelby Cobra Daytona Coupe. Now the reason why they call this the Daytona Coupe is because, well, this was born out of necessity. So what happened back in 1961, 62, what happened in 61, and what happened in 1963 was Shelby came up with the Daytona, with the Cobra 289. Well, it first had a 260 V8, and then you got the 289. So they raced it at a bunch of short tracks so they raced it at, places like Lime Rock and Portland and Mosport and Laguna Seca, Bridgehampton, Brainerd, Bridgehampton, and Riverside, and noticed it did quite well at those tracks. But when they went to places like Daytona and Monza, Spa, and Le Mans, they noticed that it racked up all those victories. It beat the Corvette, yada, 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 and then they put out the 427, which helped it out. It transformed it into a 130, 140 mile an hour car into a 163 mile an hour car. But at places like Le Mans, you need something with an aerodynamic body, and they found out that the Cobra 289, or the 289 would only do 150, and then the Cobra would do about 155, 160. That wasn't going to be enough to challenge Ferrari at all, because Ford wanted to go up against Ford at the time, and they were failing. And then they came up with this in 64, and this is what happened. So what they did is they asked Cal Shelby and Brock Yates to come up with a car that would not only be durable, but it would also be reliable and fast on the straights. So what they did is they found, now the chassis that's on this car is actually the same chassis as the Roadster. The only difference is there was a little bit of an overhang, and there was rear overhang, and then this little cam tail here to help out the aerodynamics, help push the car to the ground. And this one has opening doors. I forget how you open them. Yep, so there's one, and then here's number 2. As you guys can see inside there, decent sized gear shift. Very tall, very Cobra-like, and then the Cobra wheel. And because it had to be a passenger car, it had to have a spare tire in there, and it had to have a lifting rear glass. They had to do that because it had to be legal to run. It had to be known as a road car, so they had to have a spare tire just in case the flat came off. The driver would be able to do that. And you guys can see you guys can see in there that you guys can't really see in there, but there's a disc brake in there, but there's brake discs in there. And this is also the first car with air jacks. And powering the car in there is a four barrel, there on the top of the intake plenums is those are velocity stacks, and those are those are 2 sets of carburetors, and I think they're dual choke Webers. They're either Webers or Solexes, I can't remember. It helped give the car it was a 289, regular 289 put about 260, 270 horsepower. This put up about 350, and with the swoopy body, they tested it against the They tested it against the regular Cobra, and they found out that it was going over 190 miles an hour. Yeah, because it was over 20 miles an hour. Yeah, it was over 20 miles an hour faster. So it went almost 180, 190. That was enough to put it in league with Ferrari, which it needed to be. So, and this would be the forerunner to the GT40, which would come out in. This would be the forerunner to the GT40. The next car I'm about to talk about, for those of you who know the GT40 is well known as maybe one of the most successful racing cars in the late 60s for Ford, for winning the total performance, Ford Total Performance, winning NASCAR, IndyCar, Le Mans, and drag racing, of course. The Daytona was a forerunner to the GT40 program. The GT40 program, as you guys know, started out with the 289, and then eventually they went to the 427 in 66, from 66 on, and 66 on, so 66 on up. So, yeah. And you guys know the story. Ken Miles, Cal Shelby got into it, and he straightened out the vehicle. It's actually very funny how the greatest race team managers, the best hot rod guys, fixed their cars. John Wyer fixed the 917, and Cal Shelby fixed the GT40. And a lot of people remember the GT4. The most famous victory of the GT40 was obviously the Ken Miles one, but that one was a popular one. But the most famous one was obviously 1967 with Foyt and Kearney, with the 427 Mark IV, the thing that looks like a spaceship. It's actually, I think the front end of this actually kind of inspired that, actually. For those of you guys who haven't seen a Mark IV GT40, it's got a long rear. It's basically that, but with a longer rear tail. Dual exhaust pipes at the back, and a 427 putting out 520 horsepower to the rear wheels. Capable 215 to 220, which at the time was actually very fast for a sports car, and such. That was the most famous one for the moment that happened. Famous. And then 68, 69, obviously they went to the Mark 1 GT40, the Mark 1 GT40 when they won in 68 and they won in 69, and then we know Ferrari and Porsche took over the championship after that, and that was Porsche, Matra, and a bunch of other ones. But that Cobra Daytona, though, it started the whole realm of the project. Brock Yates was in on it. Ford was in on it. Shelby was definitely in on it. Had it not been for this car, the Shelby Daytona, it wouldn't have been through. Now the rumor has it that the Shelby Daytona was actually going to be the be something that would actually be the one that would actually be the one that would have taken over the GT40 program. they actually almost thought of they almost wanted to cancel the GT4 program and actually produce more of those cars. And there would have been a 427 version, but they didn't want to do it. And it was only 2 years. So they entered a total of 6 cars between 64 and 65. Actually, it was 2 years, 64 and 65. 64 and 65. It was probably known as the GT Division 3 for engines over 2,000 cc, and these cars competed in races, the 500,000 kilometer and 2,000 kilometer, because Daytona at one point was actually known as a 2,000 kilometer race. Yeah, the 2,000 kilometers of Daytona, or the Daytona sweepstakes, or whatever it was called back then, before it was called the 24 hours of Daytona. Daytona 24 hours wouldn't get that designation till 66, I believe. Yeah. And the first year it went out, it was actually very good. It was it won. It actually finished second in the GT3 class in 64 by 6 points, and then they won that class the next year by 19 points. And it is actually, to this day, it is actually the only time an American car has actually won the GT class internationally, FIA international GT class. Hopefully Corvette next year when they run at, hopefully next year. Well, actually, I don't think they'll be running next year, because I think they'll be out of competition. But Corvette has 2 more rounds to go in the FIA World Endurance Championship, even though I think there's just there for the BOP at Le Mans, even though they're planning to end with GT3 Premium, which I think is a sucky idea, but it means that they will not be competing in there. I think when the new look GT3 class comes in 2024, they may have a shot at actually doing it, and premium bodywork and all this other stuff. I just wish they would just keep it GT3 and just regular, because it's a premium class, it won at places. So it raced at places like Le Mans, Daytona, Imola, Rem, Spa, Goodwood, Oulton Park, Tour de France, Enna, Rouen, Diastatis. Remember, I took that. If you guys look in the gear change show, I took a lap around that car, around that track in a GT car and in a prototype. So and then there's Monza, which is the big long track. Circuito Piccolo del Modena, Tour de France Automobile, which was a Tour de France, not the bike race. There was a Tour de France car race. List of competition and results. It was 4th overall GT class it was 4th overall first in its class, but Dave McDonald, Bob Albert. 64 Le Mans 24 hour. It was 4th overall, won the class. Dan Gurney and Bob Bondurant. Bob Bondurant is very known because he actually has he used to have a he actually has a he's actually the guy who started the driving school. Unfortunately, Bob passed away in last year. When did Bobby pass away? Last year, the end of last year in November. They won the 65 Le Mans, Daytona 24. They won the 66. They won the 12 hours of Sebring. in this car because, well, 66 they won the 12 hours of Sebring, and then they won the 24 hours of Daytona. So I was right. 64 was the last year that they did the little sweepstakes, and now it was the RSC Tourist Trophy is RSC Tourist Trophy is the Silverstone. 12 hours of Reims, which were used to start in the day, and it clinched the 65 championship there. And Pergasu, which is Pergasu, and it has 25 land speed records. Ferrari Mulsanne problem. So here's the story. So Carroll Shelby, after winning Le Mans in 1959, wanted to return to Europe to beat Enzo Ferrari with a car of his own design. So he decided to do that. The only problem was, though, as I said before, the car was limited to 157. It was like 30 miles an hour slower than the 250 GTO. And if you guys don't know what the 250 GTO is, probably one of the best sports car racing cars of all time. They actually, the story says Shelby asked Pete Brock. He's the one who did the Shelby Daytona Coupe. He also did Corvette Stingray. Still alive, by the way. Pete Brock is still alive. I don't think he was the one who did the Cannonball Run. I think that's another guy. Pete Brock was pretty good. He worked with General Motors, and he worked with Ford and a bunch of other people. He was the one who actually made this car what it was. I'm just saying this right now. If that car did not exist, we wouldn't have the GT40 program, and we wouldn't have the car that would be the catalyst for making it. Now, there's two cars that they could have used with the GT40 program that were the catalyst for the GT program. There was the Lola Mark 6 GT, which had the headlights of some other car, and then I think the Lotus Cortina and a 260 V8, I think from a Ford, I think. And that was going to be the basis for that. And then eventually they wound up using those at the 64 and 65 Le Mans, the one they won. Well, actually, I don't think they won the 65 Le Mans. I think it was the 250 or the 275 GTBs that were supposed to win, or the LMs, 250 LMs, 275 LMs. But that was the car that was the car right there that kind of jump started the whole GT40 program. And Shelby's like, Shelby's like, I want a big car to win. I want the Ford Motor Company to win, not my own car to win. Ford ended up getting 66, 67. Shelby was not present. Shelby was not in any way, shape, or form in league with the GT40 program after 68, 69, because that was John Wyer's program. Because Shelby, I think, went elsewhere. Shelby was more doing road car models, and the Shelby name, as we know it, was famous for the Shelby GT250, which was launched in 1965. That would be a road racing car that would do well over here as well as over in the U.S. And then it would kind of be the thing that would beat everything in Trans Am in 68 through 70, and then 68 through 70, and then Shelby would eventually be known for supercharging, for making the Mustang, GT500, 67, 68, 69, 70, and then those cars would wane. But it was that era in 1959 to '70 where he went crazy with the Mustang, the Mustang, the Shelby Cobra, and then the GT40, obviously. So yeah. So there's your gear change show. You got a little gameplay, and then you also got the gear change show. So so yeah. So kids, that's how so if it wasn't for this car right here, so if it wasn't this car taught Shelby all he needed to know about making an aerodynamic car and making a car that would cut through the air way better than a Ferrari, because he could win the GT class, because he would win overall, because he could have won had they put a little bit more DNA in this car and R&D in this car and put a 289 in it. This car weighed about 2,229 pounds. So lighter than the Daytona, lighter than the GT40, way lighter than the GT40. But I don't think it would have won the overall championship, because the car needed to do over 200 to face the Ferraris, because by 1965, the Ferraris were already touching 190, 195 already. So they needed something that was going to beat the balls off of it, and that's what they did. So thank that car and the Lola GT, the Lola Mark 6 GT GT car, as well as the Cobra Daytona, because what they did through learning those cars and with Peter Brock's help, they were able to marry the horsepower and reliability of an American engine to a body that could push it along at 100. And it did very well, because the car ended up going, because the car ended up matching, ended up going 30 miles an hour faster and 35 miles an hour faster, and then ended up taking on Ferrari and actually doing a very good job. So 64, they were very close, and then 65 they did so. But if it wasn't for that car, we wouldn't have the GT40 program, and the GT40 program wouldn't have gone through if they hadn't learned from this car and said, okay, we obviously need a slimmer body, we obviously need a car that's lighter and faster, because after this car won in 65 and then the GT40 won in 66, that's what evolved into the Mark IV GT40, which was the J car. Unfortunately, Ken Miles, who I believe drove a Daytona at one point, I believe did passed away when you were testing at Willow Springs in 1966 into 1965, and it was a horrible loss, obviously. Dan Gurney and AJ Foyt obviously were the drivers for the 67 effort, and it produced maybe one of the funniest moments in sports car racing history. So story has it, amongst all the chaos in the 1967 race, and the GT40s having the pace and the Ferraris having the technical know-how that they usually have, because their V12s were super complicated and they were lighter and all this other stuff, but the GT40 always had decent stuff, and you had Gurney and AJ that could really drive American beasts like that, because the car was, because back in 1966 the GT40 was over 3,000 pounds on the grid. They were able to get the Mark IV to 2,600 pounds, but it was still like 500-600 pounds. It was still 600 pounds heavier than the 2,000 pound than the 2,000 pound P4 330 P4 Competizione. And the story has it that Mike Parks, who was driving the Ferrari, kept flashing his lights. It's kind of a standard thing you do now, to let other drivers to know you're coming out, you're coming through, and you're going to get out of the way. But Gurney was leading, and he started flashing the lights. And this is back when light switches and wire connections weren't all that great. So and he flicks the lights, and Gurney basically is like, okay, I've had enough. Pulls over to the side of the road. I forget where they pull it. I think it was like Mulsanne corner or something like that. They pull over to a side of the grass. His car is buzzing by them. And this is like 3 o'clock in the morning. So the story has is they sat there in the dark for like 4 minutes, which is 4, maybe. They sat in there what felt like an eternity. I'm going to say they probably sat there for maybe a minute, maybe a minute or so. Gurney said it felt like an eternity, and they just sat there in the darkness. Cars whirring away. Cars obviously on, blah, 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 all around them, and the cars are idling. And Parks gets the thing that he's not going to be able to irk Gurney. Pulls over to let himself back on the track. Gurney rejoins him. Gurney retakes the lead retakes the lead of the race on his terms, because let's just face it, the GT40 was the better car. And they ended up winning. It was kind of the funniest thing. And it also, fun fact, 1967, fun fact, it started the tradition for the champagne, because there's a shot of Dan Gurney holding the big magnum of champagne, him taking the cork off, and spraying the crowd with the champagne. And it was a huge thing. Eventually, I think one of the guys who, I think Gurney put the bottle down, one of the photographers, I think a long time ago, snatched it and used it as a lamp for a number of years, and then he gave back Gurney the bottle. And I think Gurney had it until his death. So, and then 68 was when John Walker came over, and John Walker came over, and in 69, 1969 was the final year of the GT40 program, which this car started. And they won the race, but it not only started it was the end of an era for the GT. It was the end of the GT40 program, and I think I don't see any Ferraris. I see 1275 LM, but I see 1275 LM, but in there. But the man who won that race was Jackie Oliver and Jackie Ickx, and Jackie Ickx would go on to win Le Mans 6 times after that, culminating with his final victory. I think it was 1984. So, yeah, so there you have it. So this car right here, started many careers, many memories, and legends in sports car racing. So, an American manufacturer was actually responsible for creating many legends, and the passing of a good driver, obviously, in Ken Miles. So yeah, that's the story of the Shelby Daytona Cobra Daytona Coupe and what it accomplished. So I hope you guys enjoyed that history lesson, and you guys got a gear change show tonight. So, and I just didn't do a 15-minute one like I did the last couple of times. I wanted to double it this time. So yeah, so everybody, as usual, thank you for watching. As usual, everybody, long live this great country, long live our freedoms and our rights. Let us all stay strong. Let's get back on the road now. Let's get back on the road to recovery, because COVID is starting to become an irrelevant thing, even though monkeypox is. And also pray for my friends. Let them all stay strong. I will see you guys tomorrow for my next one. This is episode 53 of the year, 333 for the 53 of the year, 333 total. I will see you guys next time. Do not go away. I will be back very soon.